The promised Messiah ﷺ passed away on the 26th of May 1908 after a short illness. A few years prior to his death, he had published a booklet by the name of The Will, in which he offered his community the consolation that after his departure, God would help them with the second manifestation of his power, as it had happened at the death of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, when God had raised Hazrat Abu Bakr as his second manifestation to rally the Muslims. Thus, Hazrat Hakim Maulvi Nuruddin Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu was raised as the second manifestation after the promised Messiah ﷺ, and was elected the first Khalifa of the movement under divine guidance.
खिलाफत क्या है एक फज़ले अज़ीम रब रहमा है सरासर नूर और रहमत इल्म और हिकमत का गुलिस्तान है।
Divine grace enabled him to perform in his capacity as Khalifatul Masih so well that by the time of his death in 1914, the movement had been fully safeguarded against disruption and disintegration. The majority of members remained loyal and devoted to the Khalifa, but a small number of people who were under the influence of Maulvi Muhammad Ali began propagating their thoughts against the Khalifa and raising the question that does the authority lie with the Khalifa or the Anjuman, which was the administrative body set up by the promised Messiah ﷺ. They also spread the idea that the only function of the Khalifa is to lead the prayer services and funeral services and make announcements of weddings and to take the covenant of new entrance into the movement. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I refuted these ideas and emphatically clarified the true concept of Khilafat. During his Khilafat, a number of magazines and newspapers were established, one of the most prominent being Al-Fazl. One of the milestones of his Khilafat was the establishment of the first Ahmadiyya Muslim mission in 1914, and the first missionary sent to England was Chaudhry Fateh Muhammad Sial. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I passed away on Friday the 13th of March 1914. Over 2,000 Ahmadis converged where, in accordance with his will, he stated that his successor should be a righteous and devoted man. Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu was elected as the Khalifa.
A man of God, an ocean of divine and secular knowledge, the articulate voice of the age, without doubt, a great genius of the 20th century, an epitome of the qualities of leadership. These are just some of the traits of Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, the promised son of the promised Messiah and Mahdi, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam.
ऐ फज़ले उमर तेरे औसाफ़े करीमाना ऐ फज़ले उमर तेरे औसाफ़े करीमाना याद के बनाते हैं हर रूह को दीवाना.
He was the promised reformer whose advent was prophesied by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the promised Messiah, on whom be peace, and who became the second Khalifa at the young age of 25. and nourished the community to its maturity for more than 50 years with his spiritual guidance, prayers, tears, toil and blood. His life fulfilled every aspect of the grand prophecy of the promised Messiah set out in an announcement in 1886. In order to stimulate the moral and spiritual qualities of the community and carry its message far and wide, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II established the Tehreek-e-Jadid scheme in 1934. Everything in the movement was charged with new life and new spirit under the impact of this scheme. The most striking activity of this scheme was the network of foreign missions that progressively spread into many countries. And due to the blessings of this scheme, there are now flourishing branches of the movement in more than 200 countries. His greatest work is Tafsir-e-Kabir, his wondrous 10,000-page commentary of the Holy Quran. Any individual who has read a part of it with concentration cannot but acknowledge that if there was a holy person in the world who had only published part of such a commentary of the Holy Quran, it would have been sufficient for him to be acknowledged as a holy person from among the holiest persons in the world. It was not enough for Hazrat Muslim Maud just to write the commentary and distribute it. Hazur wished to propagate the word of God all over the world. He called the youth of the Jamaat to dedicate themselves for religious training in the community's missionary training college, Jamia Ahmadiyya. He called on parents to dedicate their children for the service of Islam. He prepared such godly scholars that demonstrated the Quran to be a life-giving message and carried its message to the corners of the earth. It is a direct result of these sacrifices and attention that services are being rendered to the Holy Quran in every corner of the world. On the 8th of November 1965, the movement was shook to its foundations by the demise of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II, may Allah be pleased with him. Every member of the community was overwhelmed with grief.
On the 8th of November 1965, after the sad demise of his father, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad was elected the third Khalifa in Rabwa. In many ways, this prodigious child was the fulfillment of the Holy Prophet ﷺ's prophecy regarding the promised Messiah ﷺ, that he would marry and have offspring. 1970 marked the year when Hazur toured West Africa. Whilst there, he felt a dire need to help the poor people around him. He devised the Nusrat Jahan scheme to tackle the problems in Africa by building hospitals and schools for the locals. By the grace of Allah, the impact of this scheme was instant, and by the end of the Third Caliphate, over 20 hospitals and more than 120 schools had been built. Later that year, Hazur went on to visit Switzerland, England, Germany and Spain, laying the foundations of mosques in several of these countries. The Basharat Mosque in Spain was the first to be built in the country for more than 700 years. Of the many schemes launched by the third Khalifa, one of the most notable ones is the Talim al-Quran scheme, launched in 1966 with the desire that there be no member of the Jamaat unable to recite the Holy Quran and understand its meanings. In the same year, Hazur started the Waqf-e-Arzi scheme, which required volunteers to serve the Jamaat for 2 to 6 weeks at their own expenditure. Hazur then opened the Waqf-e-Jadid office for the Atfal, encouraging them to instill the habit of sacrifice within themselves. A flame of opposition was kindled in 1974 against the community. The situation had become so grave that news of Ahmadis being arrested, injured and even martyred was arriving on a regular basis. But the enemies did not stop there. Mosques, libraries and mission houses were either seized or destroyed. Ahmadis all over the country were boycotted. For several months, Huzur spent his nights in prayer for the protection and well-being of his sincere followers. The eyes of the Christian world were gazed upon Ahmadiyyat in 1978, when Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad delivered his speech about the breaking of the cross in London. Despite threats from different churches, Huzur was not to be averted from presenting to the world Islam's beautiful teachings. Every moment of Huzur's life was in accordance with the motto he chose for the Jamaat: love for all, hatred for none. On the 9th of June 1982, at the age of 73, this flag-bearer of peace, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad, passed away and met with his Creator.
Nearly 100,000 members gathered at the headquarters in Rabwa. In accordance with the constitution of the community's electoral college, a meeting of the college was convened in the Mubarak Mosque in Rabwa to elect the new Khalifa. Under divine guidance, the electoral college elected Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad as the new Khalifa. Overwhelmed with emotion, he first took the oath in front of thousands. Then he took the covenant of allegiance. It was during the time of General Zia that persecution against the Ahmadiyya Muslim community peaked. Their shops were looted and set on fire, and mobs rioted outside their mosques. The discrimination practiced by the Bhutto government increased. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV urged restraint on his followers, and he continued to warn Zia, but the general paid no attention to the warnings. On the 26th of April, 1984, Ordinance 20 was introduced under martial law by General Zia-ul-Haq. The ordinance was designed to prohibit Ahmadis from practicing their faith. Huzur immediately called a meeting, and it was unanimously decided that Huzur should leave the country immediately. Consequently, Huzur left Pakistan and arrived in London Heathrow. Huzur then established London as the new headquarters of the community. Within 3 years, realizing that the Jamaat will expand in a much bigger scope, in 1987 he started the Waqf-e-Nau scheme and informed parents from all over the world that they should offer their children even before their birth and then train them accordingly so that they become fruitful servants for the Jamaat. Once the new setup in London was established, Huzur was able to lead the community freely. The 23rd of March, 1989 marked 100 years for the community. From the humble beginnings in Qadian to over 120 countries in the world, the past 100 years saw the Jamaat grow from strength to strength. On the 7th of January, 1994, MTA International was launched and daily transmission started. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV maintained a deep interest in the administration and the overall supervision of MTA. Under his guidance, the channel progressed rapidly, starting its 24-hour service across the globe on the 1st of April 1996. He personally initiated new programs and participated in countless programs, ranging from lectures, sermons, and question and answer sessions, to teaching the Holy Quran and homeopathy, catering for people of all ages and for a variety of languages. He ensured that MTA sought to provide an education and training medium unrivaled in history. His charismatic personality graced the screens of millions. The hurdles had now collapsed, and his message could now reach the community no matter where they were in the world. He spread the message of God. He was a fountain of knowledge. He touched the hearts of people. He was loved by both young and old.
Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih IV, passed away at his residence in London on the 19th of April 2003. On the 22nd of April 2003, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad's election as Khalifatul Masih V was announced.
आज मोरखा 22 अप्रैल सन 2003 बरोज़ मंगल बाद नमाज मगरिब व इशा मस्जिद फजल लंदन में सैयदना हज़रत खलीफतुल मसीह सानी अल मुस्लिहुल मऊद रज़ी अल्लाह अन्हो की मुकर्रर करदा मजलिस इंतखाब खिलाफत का इजलास बसदारत मोहतरम चौधरी हमीदुल्लाह साहिब मुनक़िद हुआ, जिसमें हस्ब कवायद हर रुकन ने खिलाफत अहमदिया से वाबस्तगी का हलफ उठाया और उसके बाद मुकर्रम व मोहतरम साहिबजादा मिर्ज़ा मसरूर अहमद साहिब सल्लमहु रब्बहु को खलीफतुल मसीह मुंतखब किया।
है इरफान इस्लाम हर सिमत जारी।
If we look at the situation of the world today, we realize that now, more than ever, it is a pressing and urgent need of the time for us to seek and pursue peace and harmony in the world. The desperate state of affairs in Syria, Egypt, Libya and Iraq also seems to be leading us down a path towards something far wider and even more devastating. Since being elected in April 2003, through the divine will as Khalifatul Masih V, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, has travelled extensively to various parts of the world. He has delivered the same message everywhere, calling the people of the world towards peace, justice, tolerance and compassion. His words and guidance stand apart from the words spoken by all other world leaders, as he is not driven by any political or vested interests. He is driven only by a desire to spread the true and peaceful teachings of Islam throughout the world. In 2012, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad delivered Islam's true message to two of the most important parliaments in the world. In June, he delivered a historic address at Capitol Hill, urging the United States to use its power and influence for the good of mankind and to bring about peace. In early December, His Holiness was invited to the European Parliament to address the leaders of Europe regarding the pressing needs of the time. An event was organized by Dr. Charles Tannock, MEP, in which His Holiness was able to address members of the European Parliament. Also in attendance were MPs from various national parliaments and a range of other dignitaries and influential people. His Holiness took the opportunity to remind the European countries of their responsibilities as member nations of the European Union. Huzoor was also welcomed to the Houses of Parliament in London by the Deputy Prime Minister and various UK Secretaries of State and parliamentarians in June 2013. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V visited Westminster to deliver the keynote address at a special reception hosted by Right Honourable Ed Davey MP, the Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, and the all-party parliamentary group for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, in recognition of the 100-year centenary celebrations of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat in the UK. Huzoor travelled to Singapore, Australia, New Zealand and Japan, promoting the message of peace. On one occasion he stated, "I have delivered the same message calling for peace and justice. On many occasions in different parts of the world, I do the same. I do not know how much impact my views have had on those who have listened to me, and I am not aware to what extent they are working towards developing peace within their own circles of influence. Nevertheless, I will, God willing, always continue to carry out my task and my responsibilities of promoting peace, tolerance, justice and compassion to the corners of the world. I will continue to tell all people that in order to be relieved of the pain and suffering that we face today, we must adopt true justice and equality. What is actually meant by justice, and what does it require? I shall now answer this question based entirely on the teachings of the Holy Quran. The words of His Holiness have an overwhelming effect on the entire world. With the blessings of Allah the Almighty, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, will continue to show the world the true meaning of Islam Ahmadiyya, a message of peace, and lead the Ahmadiyya Muslim community for many years to come.
अज़ीम रब रहमा है।